Hi, and welcome back to my second part of the Can the Average Pursue Excellence talk. And before moving into the second part of the talk for this video, I wish to recap the topics that I have discussed in the first part of the video. So let me start. So we were discussing about uh, the averages. I mean, like what kind of people fall into the category of averages, or why is someone an average person? And what it means to pursue excellence. And followed by this, we discussed about the various stages of the importance of time and versus mental capacity and the dynamic property of this map. And then we also discussed about the equations of motions that can define a person, that through which we can define a person depending on their mental capacity and their emotional capacity. And we drew analogies with a car. And then we discussed about the importance of understanding how results work through by breaking three different myths that myths or misinterpretations that are stopping you from being average. Then we started about habits and the importance of the space-time bias that habits do possess, and also how to break it by employing writing. And finally, I would like to say that as we have discussed earlier, uh, our decisions, even in the very long time scale, let's say 5 years or 10 years, may look as a big cycle, but it is not a big cycle. It can be broken down into outcomes from decisions made on a single day. So 5 years is made up of single days, and each and every day is made up of bits of 10 to 15 minutes. And so the decisions that we make very consciously with the 5 year plan is extremely small in nature. I mean, it is extremely minuscule, which means that whatever I'm doing for a time period of 10 to 15 minutes, the decisions I take over a time period of 10 to 15 minutes can have a great impact in a time scale that is of years. So it is not necessarily that we have something, 5 years is a very long period, because our mind is not programmed to comprehend a very long time scale. And it can make decisions that can be consistent over a long period of time unless we make note of it or we employ a storage device uh, that can span over a very long time. So that's why it's very important to make your decisions through a notebook if you want to have some benefits uh, in in a very long in the years time scales. And on the other hand, if you do not do that, you might have uh, some bad outcomes, because obviously if you do not follow up, if you're not conscious about the process that goes into this decision making, then we can understand that it will definitely lead to regrets. So that is important. So that is almost the roundabout or the revisiting the previous talk. And then I would like to start this talk with a very important topic, that is the phases of learning. And why is it important to discuss the phases of learning is an interesting part. So whenever we start learning, let's say any skill, let's say a particular topic or in that is academic in nature, or a particular skill that we want to master, let it be programming, let it be a physical skill that we want to we wish to become a master of, then what happens is that we have a learning phase. So we go through the process of learning, and it is interesting at first because everyone wants to become great at first, but that is not a very quick reaction, or that is not a very quick transformation. So there is always a question as to when will I become a master of something, or what are the phases, or what should I go through to become a master? Because you can spend years, months and years in a particular topic and still never become the master of it. Because if you do not understand how our mind perceives learning, it is very easy to be stuck in a particular phase of learning and not improve at all in the long run. And that is not very good. So this is totally my perspective of how learning works. and most importantly, it is the phases of learning that I classify. And I hope this discussion also helps or aids you to uh, make your own plans or set your own learning goals. So I divide learning into a little bit of four different categories. The first part is the capability part, which is self-explanatory mostly. So you are capable of doing a particular task. So let's say that uh, let's talk about actually learning is uh, is a global sense, which means that it can be mental exercise, or it can be an emotional exercise, or it can also be a physical exercise. So let me say that today I can lift um, weight, say 10 kgs to a particular distance. So that is my capability. Okay. So if I wish to improve, or if I wish to improve, what it means is that can I lift like something like 50 kgs or 100 kgs in a certain period of time. So that is the mental, so that is the physical learning, that you're training your body to do a particular thing that is impossible now, but will be possible in the future. So these are the common phases. This is also applicable to all phases, all kinds of learning, and uh, this also carries out for academic learning. So my examples mostly will stick with an academic approach, or learning for a test, or learning for something that challenges you in a mental way. So the first part that we need to understand is that that always triggers us is how long is it going to take to master it? Right? That's a really interesting question. So we got to understand these four periods and the time scale it takes around us. So I'll just give a review of how these four um, ideas are coming into place. The first part is capability, which means that I'm capable of doing a particular, read a particular uh, question, or a particular paragraph within my limits. So that is my limit of doing that work. And it will take, as you're already capable of doing it, you have been trying to do it since when you were a kid, you can do that in a very short time scale, let's say in the minutes or maximum in the hours time scales. But when you are trying to push your limits, something that is becoming hard for you to do because you are not, your body or your mind is not ready to do it. So that is a period that we need to struggle, or we need to cross a barrier that is not a very spontaneous process. It's a lot of effort that needs to get into it to adapt into the uh, improvement. So that period is called as the pain period, because you are giving a stimulus to your body or mind and checking its response. So whatever you're trying to do in this period is totally new. I mean, it is totally new for your mind, or new for your body, and so it is not a very easy thing. So it's going to take a month's time scale. Let's say like 6 months or 3 months, so depending on whatever thing, how uh, I mean, it depends on our capability, and also the weight of the skill that you wish to master. And also then you have, followed by this is the exploration period, in which you are trying to explore it. Now you have you have adapted yourself to the new stimulus, but still you need to explore the basic algebra of it, like how does the particular idea work, or how to improve it, or you become creative in this phase. So that's why it is called as exploration phase, and that is in the years time scale. Like it might I do not want to define exactly the time. It might be like 3 to 4 years, or something like that. But that is a final stage of learning. That is the enlightenment phase, which is which engulfs us in as in decades. Because learning, let's say that we can have maximum for, I mean, depending on the person, an average person can have maybe 3 years of 3 decades of uh, enlightenment phases, because it's a it's the decades time scale, like 10 years. So what's my plan for the next 10 years? So, and so on and so forth. So it is being split into multiples of 10. So you can focus on something that you wish to get enlightened or wish to become mastered, And for a 10-year time scale, you can choose something. I mean, I'm talking about time scales, so that I need to be extremely precise. I'm not talking about times, but time scales. So it depends on the intensity of how much effort you're going to put into the process of learning. So depending on this, these things vary. And so with that introduction about the phases of learning, I will move on to the first phase, which is the capability. So as I have mentioned earlier, you can define a person depending on the intelligence quotient IQ and also the emotional quotient of the EQ. So the intelligence quotient is what are you capable of doing? So that is your mental capacity, right? Yeah. And yeah, that is the second part uh, of the parameter that defines us as people is the emotional quotient, which is the question that is how much can you do it. So let's say that you can sit and read one paragraph. You are capable of processing one paragraph very quickly. Okay, that's really good. That's your IQ. But how long can you perform that? So let me say that if I am an average person, what I had was like I can sit for maybe like 10, 20 minutes, and I can sit and read maximum for 10 and 10 to 20 minutes, and I can process a couple of paragraphs, or maybe one page maximum. So that was my capability. So these are the initial parameters that we need to be very sure of it, because we need to know where we are currently at the current moment. What is our current capabilities? And that is very important to know, because then only we give ourselves the chance to improve, because knowing the present situation is very important to build our uh, make our ideas or scale up our abilities. So then that is a very interesting part, is that okay, I've defined the IQ and EQ, right? Yes. So these are the parameters that you know, but what is the starting point? So you are capable of doing so and so things, and so and so um, for a certain period of time, but you're capable of doing all these things. But when I'm going to start it, so let's say that uh, there can be highly potential people that you might have seen, or you might be a highly potential a person with a high potential, and you know that you can read a particular thing within seconds or within minutes. You can solve such a particular problem, but you actually wait for some time. You wait for something to kick in, and then you move on with it. So the first part, what we need to understand is that yes, we do have the capability of doing solving a problem, be it mental or physical, because we do have a certain parameter like the intelligence quotient or the capacity, and then also we do have the emotional quotient, the ability to sit and work on it. But the most important question is that when will we start using our capabilities? So uh, so that is a very important question. So when does our capabilities come into play? Because we do all have these parameters, these abilities, but when we start is the most important question, because that is going to define, or that is going to be the first step in improving ourselves as better learners. So let's take a very simple example: a person who is preparing for a semester exam. So we know that a semester is a 6 month period, after which we will be tested on the uh, lessons that were taught in that particular time period. So let me split this uh, into three different phases of preparing for the exam. One is 6 months 6 months before, then 1 month before, and then 1 week before. So for let so if I was a student, so when I was a student, what I used to do is that 6 months before, what I do is I just grab any set of books and start reading things that like stories, not exactly um, something that is very focused learning, because there is nothing to focus on. So I'm just starting the course. I just read in a random fashion. Then after 1 month, I'm a little bit serious about my reading, and this becomes much more sharper just 1 week before the exam, in which I just stick to the key points that are necessary for the exam. So if I plot a graph, across this entire time period, and plot the productivity of myself. So I define my productivity as my ability to use my capacity. So when do I start actually using my capacity, right? So that is the productivity. And I understand that my productivity heightens only 1 week before the exam. So why is it so? So this is a very interesting case that most of us might have faced in our own lives. So the fundamental idea is that we will be starting to use our capabilities, or pushing to our capabilities only when we know that time is limited. So we can use our capabilities only when we understand that time is limited. I mean, beyond this point, there is a point of no return. So that is the single kick that keeps us starting or punching or pushing to use our capabilities. So once we understand that, what is our idea? I mean, like, what is happening exactly in our mind is that when there is no time constraint, what we do is that we try to engulf in multiple ideas at the same time. So what happens is that there is no particular direction of focus, that there is no and so when there is less focus, which means that you're just like a ball which is trying to move in all directions. Like, it is trying to move in this direction. It's just trying to come up or cross a particular uh, do something a particular in nature, but it can't move anywhere because it is at the same time trying to move in multiple directions, just like a car that is trying to move left and right simultaneously, as we have discussed in the first video. But once when I put a time constraint that I'm focused on, this is my target, this is my goal, this is what I want to solve, or I want to study, or I want to approach this problem, but I have very limited time. I'm not going to give myself a very long time, but I'm going to give myself a very short time period. So once I have this particular direction of focus with a time element in it, what happens is that I start getting some sense of direction and I start moving in some direction. So what happens is that, as we saw in the first set of graphs, if you make a plot versus how exactly I'm focused in the particular project and how efficient am I in solving a particular problem, is that when there are no time constraints, I'm not exact, I'm very broad, or I'm totally moving in multiple directions without any focus. But once I constrain my time, that this is the time I have, and I can't buy some more time. So what happens at that time is that your focus becomes heightened and you do have a sense of direction and you are trying to solve something. So at that moment, you are extremely precise or extremely exact in what you're trying to solve. And when you get how if exact you are about your goals, your efficiency starts increasing. So now you do understand that a person can be defined by the intelligence quotient, two parameters, IQ and EQ1. But when you're trying to evolve yourself into something better, it is literally you're trying to evolve yourself into a better form for yourself, which means that from a person with IQ 1, you're trying to evolve into a person with IQ 2. And the same thing goes for the emotional quotient. So you're trying to become much more mature with your emotional control. So this is the first step of becoming or evolving yourself into a better learner in trying to solve problems that you were not capable of solving in the first place. So now, so far, what we have discussed is that we have crossed the first phase of learning, that is pushing your capabilities or using your energy in the minutes to hours time scales. But now we have crossed that barrier. We are just pushing past our capabilities, but it is really difficult to push past the capabilities because we are trying to solve problems that are beyond our capability. And unless or until we evolve into that particular person that is capable of solving the problem, it is really difficult for us to solve the problem exactly. So that's how we define ourselves into two different states: the person who is not yet capable and a person who is capable. So how are we going to make this transformation? It is a really difficult transformation. So as we are trying to move a person with IQ1 and EQ1 into a person with IQ2 to EQ2, we are going to do it using the two-step approach. That is, first what we are trying to do is that we are trying to improve our emotional quotient. We are trying to improve our maturity uh, by increasing our emotional quotient. And then once we reach this state, we are trying to go on by improving our intelligence quotient. So let me just elaborate a little bit more on it. So, so as we have understood initially that time is emotion, or there was emotion, your time exactly is the emotion. The emotional state of our mind is what dictates how we use our time. So, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to become more mature in phase one, that is the pain period, because if we want to do something, if you want to become great at something, what we need to do is that we need to stick with it for almost an infinite amount of time with it. So what we are trying to do is that we are trying to accustom to the conditions of the new state. So that is going to be your first phase. So we make a shift from in the EQ dimension from EQ1 to EQ2, and then again, once we have a control of our time, what happens is that then we can sit over in that state and play with or explore the intelligence part of it uh, by evolving our mental capacity. So there might be also one more question as to why should I go in a two-step process like this, starting with by transforming the EQ and then going with the IQ. But why not with the IQ and not the EQ over here? So I think I will establish it in the previous slides. But if I do not do it, then I'll come back to the slide and give a little bit of hint about it. So this is a very common idea about how we evolve in time. So let's say that how can we push past the pain period, or what is the pain period? So let's say that we have regular days, and certain days we do have exams. So whenever we do have something that have exams or something like a test or a very important match, what happens is that our productivity scales up only in that part of time. So, so on average, we are at this level, okay? And whenever we do have a test or a challenge, what we do is that our productive level starts shooting up. But then what happens is that there's a big dip. Okay, so uh, we we do say that okay, we have done something great, and we start balancing it out by going in the negative direction. So which means that so if I study for 1 week for the examination, the next week I'm going to compensate it by taking by playing games or taking much more rest than I usually do, and then go back to the average thing. So this is how our habits are making us do things. So what are we trying to do? By what I mean by raising an emotional quotient is that I'm trying to establish a sense of urgency in my behavior by staying in this period, the period in which I have shooted productivity for a longer period of time. So how does it work in this period? Let's think about it. First part in emotional quotient one, when we do not have any exams or any commitments regarding that, we're just going with with the flow of the day. We do not have any special plans. We just chat up, we just play, we just talk, we just carefree at that part. But when we have the exams, we are much more focused. We sit up in a particular in our own place and start reading, and we are not much chatty with our friends and things like that. Even if we get phone calls, we try to avoid, and or you'll say that okay, I'll call later. So at this phase, the EQ2 state is actually a very short transient for an average person. But if you're trying to improve or pursue excellence, you need to you need to train yourself to stay in this part for a longer period of time. So which means that this is going to build you a focus. And what is going to happen is that by having an average of EQ1, you're shifting to an average of EQ2. Okay, so you're going to live in this in this uh, in this high productivity state for a larger amount of time. So what does it mean exactly? Is that you're going to spend a lot of time in working towards your problem. So that is the fundamental idea. So if you want to pursue excellence, then you got to be excellent on average. So what you do on average is what you are. So so I think I have this two-step process is about EQ1, which means that you got to leave the EQ1, which means that lose the habits that are going to reduce your productivity or going to consume your energy, and shift it to the new habits that you are going to develop. So you're going to lose some habits and gain some habits that correspond to EQ1 and EQ2 respectively. So you got to have two important lists. So first list is that you need to have a very specific not to do list, which means that what you need to cut off, you need to write a list of your habits and cut off the things that are not are draining your energy. Like it can be a very short thing, like half an hour watching a movie, or half an hour just watching a series or something that you find interesting for um, I mean, like that is consuming yourself, or some habit that is draining your energy. It can be extremely small time that is being consumed by that habit, but still that is going to make a very big effect on your overall growth. So, and also you're going to have a very less to-do list. So let's say that you plan to do study this, study that, study this, study that. So you have 4 to 5 uh, agendas in your to-do list. Then you got to stick with just the first thing. First thing, that is how high priority. So how do you define the high priority list? Is that something that is going to challenge you and something that is extremely necessary for your survival. So that is what is called as a high priority in your to-do list. So you just focus on the first high priority job in your to-do list and start building it from there. So this period is called as the conditioning period. That's why I call it as the pain period, because pain means that your body is. So why do we experience pain? Is that pain is a signal that you're experiencing something that is not conditioned by your body. I mean, like your body is not yet trained or conditioned to face that particular stimulus. So that is called as pain. So by so how do we condition ourselves by for that particular stimulus is by going through the pain. I mean, like till the pain reduces, or that is a marker that we are growing. So it's just like building a muscle, or um, in the literal sense that you start getting very high amount of pain when you start working out. And then as muscles build up, your pain reduces. So it is literally, I think there's an analogy in the physical and the mental picture of I mean, of trying to adapt yourself to a particular amount of stimulus. So, what is the foundation of this pain period is that self-reliance. So, so by crossing this pain period, you're trying to understand how your mind works, or how whatever you thought that you couldn't do, trying to start to do it. So, this idea is very important, and very important in the sense that this is actually self-reliance, the in which you are trying to rely on yourself to evolve yourself. I mean, like you do not have anyone else's help. So with the resources that you already have, you're trying to establish or trying to grow into something new. So the basic idea which I like to state is that the idea proposed by Jacobi is that he stated about young mathematicians who are very reluctant to try and solve new problems. So when he observed that the mathematicians were sticking uh, spending a lot of time to gain knowledge about already existing mathematical uh, structures, what happened was that Jacobi asked them to challenge the existing conditions, to learn by doing or to be practical in nature. So what he actually stated is that young mathematicians ought to be pitched into icy water to learn to swim or drown by themselves. So many students put off attempting anything on their own till they have mastered everything related to their problem that has been done by others. The result is that but few ever acquired the knack of independent work. So knowing yourself is actually trying to become independent. So what Jacobi is trying to say in this particular idea is that unless or until you start trying things by yourself, by cutting out all the factors that might help you, you are trying. So you either gain. So it's either you do or you die. So when you go to that, push yourself to that extreme, is only you will try and adapt yourself to larger problems. So if you do not try and do that, what you're going to do is that you're going to be stuck within whatever things that you are already capable of, and you never grow as a person. So this is a very something like a cartoonish version of it. So just push yourself into the problem, and by pushing yourself, what you need to do is that you need to drop your EQ1, which means that you need to drop your bad habits, and then you need to develop new habits that might help you float in the icy cold waters. So this is something that Jacobi sees. So let's move on to one of the ideas that is very important or very interesting to on how to or what to do during the pain period. Because yes, you get the idea, you get the philosophy of what is happening, but how do I execute it? So one such simple idea that I wish to propose is the isolated retrosynthesis, which means that uh, so far what we do is that we are a person with IQ1. So when we see a problem, we solve it in a particular way. We see it in a particular way, we solve it in a particular way. So that is what our mental capacity is trained. So what we're trying to do is that instead of going with multiple datas, like large chunks of data and processing it into a same way of thought, like IQ1 or not, what we're trying to do is that we're trying to generate with whatever mental capacity we have, we are trying to take a particular chunk of data. So like for example, like uh, this is a large set of data, but we are just focusing on a very short dot over it, and try to focus or try to approach the particular chunk in multiple ways. Okay, so as to get multiple outcomes from the same set of data. So this is called as the focus constraint. So as we did discuss the importance of constraints, starting from the first part, that is a capability part, in which we discussed about the time constraint and how important it is to uh, make use of your capability. Here in this part, we're going to focus on the focus constraint, which means that you're going to focus on a very small piece of data, and you're trying to get as much of information possible across with the same set of your mental capacity. So, so what does it consume exactly is that you have the, I mean, your mental capacity doesn't change much, but what you need to do to go for multiple approaches is that you need to spend a lot amount of time. So when you stick with a single chunk of data, spend a lot of time in it by asking multiple questions with that data, then what you get is that you get a focus constraint in which you build a quality over quantity. And this is important because you're training. In this case, you're not trying to arrive at a solution. You're not. I mean, this is not important. Arriving at an answer is not important, but you're trying to develop or train yourself into a new method, which is very much important than trying to solve the problem. So how does isolated retrosynthesis work is that, let me say that I have two to three, let's say I have a two to three paragraph of question that I'm trying to solve, or I'm trying to read, and that I find challenging. So what I do is that I break each and every paragraph into independent statements, and then further for each and every statement, I'm trying to build arguments. So that is what I mean by taking a part of the data and splitting it into um, multiple outcomes, or using the same amount of mental capacity. So what you're trying to do is that you're trying to raise multiple arguments for the same single statement. So how do we do that? Is that so? What are we trying to do actually is that sorry. So we are trying to reduce the efficiency of the information that is put in the textbook or something, and we are trying to reduce the efficiency, which means that you have the author, of a textbook from which you are reading, and the author has a certain degree of comprehension about the subject, and so the author is obviously highly efficient in presenting the ideas that he or she wishes to present. But what we are trying to do is that we are trying to reduce the efficiency to our level of comprehension. So what we are trying to do is that, as um Einman says in the end game, you're trying to bring the problem to yourself instead of the problem. I mean, so you're trying to move towards the problem and not let the problem move towards you. So you are trying to move towards the problem in the sense that you're bringing the problem to your own home pitch. So by doing that, what you have is that you gain confidence that you can start. I mean, it is not a very big magic trick, but you can start asking questions, simpler questions that you can understand, just asking questions and trying to find the answers for these simpler arguments. And what are these questions? I like, what do you mean by these questions? Is that, or the arguments is that you can start asking very simple questions, some logical questions that, like what, why, how, when, or where, and start generating answers about with your own common sense by just observing what is presented in a particular statement or in a particular paragraph, and start building your ability to question things question things in a multiple ways, and start presenting or writing it into a larger map. So by doing this, what you are trying to get is that you are trying to get an answer to the question, what is the purpose of learning? And the second part is that, what are you looking for? So by asking questions, it is the important part that you gain is that you gain what is the direction that you are moving towards, or what is the purpose of doing things. And most of our work or our energy spent is purpose driven. So by doing this process, the isolated retrosynthesis, in which you break a larger chunk of data into smaller chunks, and then starting to question or digest each and every chunk as if uh, as if like a kid, and then presenting or trying to master each and every chunk, and moving just scaling it up across the entire data set. So this is what I call as the isolated retrosynthesis. And by doing this, what you say is that what you I mean gain is that you gain answers to the question that what the purpose of studying this, and most importantly, what are you looking for? So a very good example of this process is Sir Isaac Newton's idea, because there were a lot of apple trees before Sir Isaac Newton, but Sir Isaac Newton was able to discover gravity because he was looking for something, like he was looking for an answer. So you can't look for something unless you have a doubt, or if you I mean you I mean do not have a doubt without asking a question, because that is where you start from. Or it is actually it's a balance. So you have a question, or you have a doubt, or the doubt is expressed as a question, but it can go either way. So that is how you start with this method, and that is extremely efficient. So now what you are becoming is that. So I was just talking about gaining independence in the mental sense, or any kind of learning sense, is that so far what you were doing is that you were being a consumer of the idea that has been discussed in a textbook. And once you start building arguments, or starting to reduce the efficiency of the statements presented in the textbook, what you do is that you start becoming creators, because you're creating questions. So when you start creating, you start becoming independent. So that is a very generic statement, but it is a universal statement. So so I wish to add one more thing also. So this process is generally like digestion. So when we are kids, we are not able to, I mean, not kids, when we were infants, we were not able to digest, larger foods. So what we had to do is that we had to break it into small pieces, and consume each and everything independently. So what we are trying to do in the mental sense is that the same process. We're treating our mind as skips because it is not adapted to this larger idea. So we're taking smaller chunks and digesting it. The digestion is a process of asking questions. And then we are trying to build a method to digest larger ideas. So that is the entire purpose of the pain period. So this, of course, you understand that it is going to take months of time, and each and every day, what you're trying to do is that you are trying to stick for larger amount of time reading and writing and creating questions. So this is going to, if you're going to try it practically, it's going to take 8 hours or 10 hours to begin with in this phase, the pain period, and it's going to take a certain amount of months to gain control over your time. So the main idea of your pain period is to increase your EQ. So once you're done with that, you you give yourself the spontaneity to sit with the problem for a longer amount of time, and that is extremely powerful. So once you get that power, what you do is that you can start exploring the ideas, the basic ideas that are being presented uh, through the pain period, because you know now how to play with these things. And by looking at a short fragments of data in multiple directions, you start building your mental capacity. So now that is the exploration period in which you're trying to challenge the pre-existing conditions or the pre-existing notions presented to you in that particular field, or as a part of that field. And now we are trying to explore the possibilities. So things become more creative and more interesting in this exploration periods. And and that's why it's going to be over a time scale of years. And now I'm going to answer the question as to why did we start initially during the pain period from starting from IQ1 to EQ1 and then moving to EQ2, and not in this direction by shifting to the IQ1. So it is actually not a very spontaneous case, because when we have a problem which we are not ready to solve with our current level of intelligence, then it is really not wise to approach it with the current level of intelligence. Because once we do not get a result over here, what happens is that we tend to become uh, discouraged by the pursuit of pursuit of learning. And then what we do is that we try and abandon the process in between, so we do not pursue the process. But in this case, when we try and improve our emotional quotient, what we do is that we start getting control over time. So when we start getting control over time, which means that we do have control over decisions, which means that we give ourselves the ability to fail multiple times and then come back and try it multiple times over the same problem that we are facing, and not shift to some other new problem which is going to break the learning pattern. So that is why it is very important or wise to start by improving your emotional quotient while learning, instead of just focusing on improving your intelligence quotient, because you can't use your intelligence quotient without having build your intelligence quotient without having a control over your current, without your time. So after your brain process, we do have the exploration period. So now what we do have is that we have two abilities. You understand the importance of time constraint from the capability phase, and then you also have the importance of understand the importance of focus in the pain phase. And now you're making yourself spontaneous for getting much more ideas and solving a problem in a much more interesting way. And as I did mention earlier, you also give yourself the chance to fail, because now failures don't affect you because you do have a control over your time. So you're not worried about the results, but you're just trying to put in effort to get better into the idea, because now you are emotionally mature, because you do have, these results do not affect you because you do have a control over your time, which means that you do have control over your decisions. So now, by doing this process, what you do is that you not only know about the things that are around you, but also you try to understand your capabilities, or you just become more knowledgeable about yourself, and that is what is more important in the pursuit of learning. And I think these are the common things, the various dimensions of purpose being opening up in front of your eyes, is what is I think is very beautiful to see. or to experience as a learner as you cross this pain period. And now, what you need to do to get results that you want exactly is in your hands. So, what you're trying to do is that now you're trying to just optimize failure. So, do multiple steps, and whatever steps generate the least amount of failure is the step that can lead to your success. So, you're just going to develop or create that particular step. And despite, I mean, you may end up with failures, which means that you do not get the results you want, but still that might be an interesting phase to just cross over it. So, with that, I think we also have the fourth phase, which is the enlightenment phase, is actually pursuing it or making. So once this phase is complete, you become the person that you wanted to be. And now we're just going to explore the current nuances or the intricacies of your particular skill or your particular gameplay or something. And that is something that you'll start learning to enjoy. So I think that is the fourth phase. The results or the self-satisfaction you're going to get of pursuing this particular challenge is going to generate your enlightenment. So now with that, discussed. So far I have discussed in the first part of the video the importance of or the different phases of learning, and that is very important to understand these phases, to plan your time, to keep an idea about how your mind works, and understanding both of these ideas is going to um, become the person that you always wanted to be. So now, after discussing that, we'll move on to the conditions for spontaneity. So for generating a result, so let's say that um, you have multiple people, right? So we have let's take a very small sample set. That is a classroom. So you have 10 people who scored top marks, right? So let's say that 10 people scored close to about 90%. So that is the result they do have, but still they can have multiple uh, but their pathways needn't be the same. So, but all of these people who are successful, I mean, I'm just not talking about the percentage or something. Just overall, the success of a person depends on how the person is able to achieve the state that he or she or the person always wanted to become. So what I have designed is that I assume that I understand that the result is the tip of the iceberg that everyone can measure. So that's why do we rely on results? Is that result is something that is global and measurable, but the foundation of the result is not the same. It is highly dynamic, or it is extremely dependent on personalities. It's extremely a personal choice. So what are the personal choices or the personal philosophies that determine you, the personal conditions that you need to be right to achieve the results that you always wanted to achieve is a 5P. It's a combination of 5Ps. So you start with the purpose, you then move on to troubleshooting your philosophies, and shift to your priorities, then move on to your plan, and then move on to your process. So what are these five things? I'll just give a very short explanation about these 5Ps. Is that let's start with the purpose. So what is your purpose? Is that it can be anything. So what is or how do you see yourself in the next 5 years or 10 years? Let's say what is your goal in life in the next 5 years? It can be extremely personal goal, it can be extremely financial, it can be extremely social, or it can be extremely with regard to your family. It really doesn't matter. But what is your goal is something that is going to drive you. So what is your purpose is that your purpose is to identify a state that is greater than your current state and back derive your time on how you're going to achieve into that state. So let's say that I want to become great as a great boxer in a 10-year time scale. Then what should I be doing in 5 years so that I'll be a great boxer in 10 years? And you should ask questions like the same thing and just retrosynthesize the pathways. Just start from the future and come back to the present. So you can ask questions as to I need to be a great boxer in 10 years. So what I should be doing in 5 years, what I should be doing in 2 years, and what I should be doing in 1 year, what I should be doing after 1 month, and what I should be doing today and tomorrow. So that's how. So that is why it is very important to have a purpose, because without having a purpose, we are stuck in the social flow or the systemic flow of time, and that is extremely not productive or dangerous. As a person, it doesn't do you much good. But if you do have a purpose, then you can go to into the future, build your purpose, and then come back and retrosynthesize your path. So the next thing is your philosophy. So what is your philosophy, or how do you take your things? So purpose, as I have defined about purpose, the philosophy is also extremely personal. So whatever works for you, you should be persistent or try and find what is working for you. So what is a philosophy is that it is your decisions that you make in time. So if you are not satisfied with the outcomes of the decisions, then you should go back and revisit your philosophy, because your philosophy is what drives your habits. Habits are the decisions that you make in real time. So it is extremely connected, and I do not wish to discuss much about philosophy part, but I think I have given some foundational work about understanding or how to perceive philosophy in the context of becoming a good learner or becoming pursuing excellence. The next important thing is priorities. So it is actually the combination of purpose and philosophies that is going to make or help you decide on the priorities in your life. So the first thing, or the rule of the thumb, is that if you do not know what you need to prioritize, the rule of the thumb is that go for something that is hard for you currently, and also go for something that is extremely necessary. So that is something that you'll be gaining something for yourself, and also doing something that is worth to the people around you. That is also important. And the next important thing is that once all the three guys fall into place, then you can focus on a plan. And as I have discussed, it is very important to have a to-do list. And it's also much more important to have a not to-do list in your planning. And actually, the process of planning, the writing down the plan, is very much important than actually executing the plan. So it's a little bit tricky to understand it. And if time permits, I'll make a separate video out of it about planning. But so far, I can discuss only to this extent, as this is I'm just introducing some ideas over here. And then once all these four P's fall into place, then it is just executing your plan. It is not going to be very hard, because once your mind is tuned on where it is going, when you do have a sense of direction, actually the process is not very difficult. It is much more simple, but it might look difficult for other people, like this person is working very hard or something, but to the person who is actually doing it, it does not seem that much hard, because when the mind realizes that uh, where it is going, or what is its philosophy, and what are the priorities, and what is the plan, actually the process is something that is spontaneous, like it's just like a flow. So once all the five fall into place, then you can achieve the results that is an observable. You can't observe the bottom of the iceberg. That's actually literally true. Is that you can't quantify these five P's of a person, because it differs from person to person, because it is a part of a character, and then it is part of the person's choices. But still, if you do not get the results that you want to get, you should definitely come back and revisit and troubleshoot these five P's, because there should be something wrong with these five P's. So I think these are the questions that you can ask to, I think, get better with your, the the starting point of building these five P's. The first, for the purpose, is that, let's say that you have performed well in so this is just a very simple case study about performing well in an exam, which is very much more simple study to compare it. So let's say that my purpose is to perform well in a particular examination, and then I got to ask, test my philosophy if my habits are favorable to achieve my purpose, and if it is not favorable, then I'm definitely not going to achieve it. So I need to make some alterations, or I need to think where my current habits are driving me to, and what I should do to stop it. And what if I do not stop it at this moment in time? So where will I be ending up? It's not very uh, sort of quantum jumps that we do have in life, but it is actually classical trajectories. So we can any person with some questions, some degree of commonsensical questions can arrive at a very strong sense of philosophy. It is not something that is extremely difficult. What you need to do is that you need to spend some time with a paper and just think about the outcomes that you want to get and what you do not want to get. So with that said, you start prioritizing on what is important. So let's say for an examination, it is really difficult to a big challenge to understand from where to start. So again, let me revisit what I told you in the previous slide. That is, start with what is hard and what is extremely necessary, and that is going to solve much of your problem. Because if you start with something easy, you are already capable of doing it. So it is totally useless and just doing what you're capable. So it is better to start with something that is hard and extremely necessary. So if it is not necessary, then it is actually a waste of time. And if it is not hard, it is actually a waste of time again. So that's how you need to prioritize your time to prepare for the exam. And then how am I going to study? It's not a so once you start prioritizing, then it is actually fixing the time um, against the plan. So I think this is the best plan. So start with something that is hard. So even on a particular day, start with something that is extremely hard for you and challenging, and spend a lot of time on it. And then when you lose your energy, you can start focusing on the things that are not much important, so that you can also use that energy to something to do something that is much more useful. So you can much be much more productive with just making a very good plan and a very challenging plan. And process is extremely simple idea, which means that you create one day that is going to be correct with the purpose, the philosophy, the priority, and the plan, and just create only one day, and then create one day in the sense that not on paper but by your actions. Start with the time you want to in with the time you want to start with the hard part of the challenge. And then once you create a day in an experience, then what you do have to do is that you just have to repeat the same day again and again. It's not going to be different. So I do not I mean, process is something that is interesting because it looks boring for the person who is looking at you, and it is interesting for the person who is doing the thing. So that's why the process is extremely undervalued, I would say. So with these basic ideas, I think I will wind up with my overall talk, and I will wish to present the conclusion. So I've discussed about the overlap of habits and splitting, or I mean, start pushing your habits into the person you want to be by having a control over your emotional quotient, which means that becoming more mature in the decisions you made, and therefore becoming a person with better habits. So if you start doing it in the 10-year time scale, what happens is that, I mean, if you do not start doing it, so let's start with the bad case, because I mean, getting a picture of this is much more important than getting a positive answer, because you need to be afraid of the person that you might end up if you do not put effort now. So that is going to be a bigger driver. So I would say that uh, habit is like gravity, which means that it keeps pulling you towards the where the potential is minimum, which means that it is going to drag you to the sweet spot, which means the most comfortable habits. So you're going to be very careful with your habits. So what you're trying to do is that you're trying to merge these curves together. I mean, to evolve into a better curve. So if you do not try or put a conscious effort, like being conscious of your decisions, uh, in the 5-year time scale, in the 3-year time scale, in the 2-year time scale, in a 10 months time scale, or next month, or today, or even for 10 to 15 minutes, then what you might end up is that you might have end up doing free drift, which means that you want to be something and you're trying to move on the opposite direction. Okay, so that is called as a free drift, because it's free because it is driven by your habits and you do not have any control over it. And once after a certain time, you were having certain potential, which did show that you could be the person you could be. But after a certain time, what becomes is that the person that you wanted to become will become a wish and not a reality. So that's why it is very important to put a conscious effort, keep on putting a conscious effort to moving towards the person you want by having control over your habits. So that is why it is very much important to have a control over your habits, and that can be done by having control over your decisions, and that shows emotional maturity. And therefore, it's very important to be aware of your local decisions. So with that, I think I have discussed plenty of ideas. I think I hope it is all falling into place. I think it might be a little bit challenging to understand everything in the first go, but still, if you do have any questions, please do post it in the comment section, and I think I'll get back to you if you do face any challenges, or if you do want me to elaborate in a particular topic, that also please do give me suggestions in the comment box. And if you do like this video, please do hit like, and I hope to meet you again in a new video. So till that, take care of yourself and stay healthy and be in pursuit of your dreams. So wishing you all the best and take care. See you.